So upcoming Friday nights, me and the degenerate boys that we're coming back with the betting show.
You look at the way he bounces off tacklers, the way that he keeps his eyes downfield, his vision, his ability to find holes, his pass-catching ability, right? Because he had...
In my lifetime, I'd put him at probably around the 2 area with, again, the only other person up there being King Ricky.
Anthony Richardson or Caleb Williams at the 111.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of BSing Sports, part of the BSing Network for now, where we do a little BS and talk a lot of sports. I am your host, Ryan. Here with me is Jacob J. Krogan. What's your middle name again?
James.
James
and the Giant Peach.
JJ.
Yep.
Yeah. You're actually your own variation of JC. If you really think about it. Too bad you're the second coolest JC I've ever met.
Oh, that's so sweet of you.
Yeah. All two of you.
Jesus Christ?
No. Well, basically, I have met Jesus Christ. Yes, I met him at the Fantasy Football Expo last year. He's a great dude. Nice beard. Very nice beard. What they say about his beard is true.
Alrighty then. Start this show.
Yeah, so back into the swing of things. Fantasy football season is over. The NFL season's about to wrap itself up. We have the Super Bowl almost 1 week to the hour from now, 6:30 p.m. next Sunday. Go Birds. I know you being a Broncos fan, you are also going to be saying go Birds.
Go fucking Birds.
Damn right.
For many of reasons.
It's weird as an Eagles fan for once to have like the whole country at our back. You generally were like one of the more hated teams in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and it's just an odd feeling. Hopefully we don't, let everybody down.
I mean, it'd be nice. I'd win a couple bands if y'all don't let me down. So
yeah, I'd win some money too. But the more important thing would be I could update, the wall here behind me, get another big ass flag.
Oh Lord, the last thing we need.
That being said, so on this week's topic, we're getting into the Dynasty Offseason. Rookie season's pretty much upon us, but the way that I like to start my Dynasty Offseason, I do this every year, is I do a top 24 rankings of quarterbacks, and I do this for a couple of different reasons. The main one is I develop my own ranking system to see who I am higher on and who I am lower on than the market consensus. This would allow me to identify potential buy low opportunities as well as sell high candidates. That would help me reshape my roster based on the way that I feel about these players in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
But it also gives us a good idea of where we rank players now versus where they will be in August, because the lists will change based on biases and new information that comes to us in the form of the NFL draft and training camp. So, Jake, first question. How did you determine your tiers? Like what criteria went into S, A, B, C, D, however many you got?
Okay, so basically S tier is the untouchables, the guys that would take 100 first, and then I still probably wouldn't trade them. And then my A tier are the guys that, man, if they're your 1, you're happy. If they're your 2, you're extremely happy. And then my B tier is guys that have the potential to be in the A tier, but I need to see something, either A, from the team, from the coaching staff, or from these players themselves to prove that they deserve to be in that A tier, to be the starter, because I have my doubts about them, and we'll get into that. And then my C tier is these guys need to prove something, because there's going to be guys trying to take their jobs. They're young, had bad offense or something, hindering them from being a consistent fantasy football player. And that is what I want to see. So that's how you get out of the C tier, put together a consistent year, and then depending on it, you can even get moved into the A tier if you're that good.
Okay, yeah, I pretty much have the same kind of criteria for each tier. S tier for me is unmovable. If I have any one of these guys, don't bother. I think, there's a common theme in Dynasty that you should at least listen to offers for players. And the reality is, like, why should I? How much better am I going to make my team if I sell Josh Allen? Like, unless Josh Allen is absolutely the only startable player on my entire roster, why would I? I'm never going to get anybody that's probably going to be better than Josh Allen. So why would I? A tier is, to your point, guys, if they're your number one quarterback, you're still in a really good spot. If they're your number two quarterback, quarterback is not your problem. B tier is like those guys are solid number two quarterbacks. If they're number ones, you probably need to look to upgrade the position. And then C tier is guys that are like, I need to see a little something. I need proof, whether, it'll go by name basis, but yeah, I need proof. So basically how I determine my tiers is exactly how you determine your tiers.
Good deal.
I will preface before we jump into the S tier names that I feel like, and you can agree or disagree, that Dynasty Fantasy Football quarterbacks are in the best spot that they've been in the last like half decade or so.
Oh, absolutely. It kind of sucks because I loaded up on quarterbacks in a bunch of leagues because I was hoping to be able to trade them or hit on some and be able to trade them. And that just didn't happen because a lot of people already have two quarterbacks that they're happy with. And so it's kind of hard to trade away quarterbacks this last year. And so there are a few teams that I have multiple. I'll just have a guy that I consider an A tier just sitting on my bench because there's so many good quarterbacks in fantasy football right now.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And throughout the season, last offseason I did some research and I kind of pivoted off the third quarterback in Superflex. I've, looked through some things and I kind of did my own analysis. And I thought to myself, having a solid third quarterback in Superflex is potentially just wasting a roster spot. Like if I know in a league you have, Bo Nix, Justin Herbert, and Kyler Murray, you're faced with not only tough decisions every week of who to start between three players that should pretty much start every week, but at the same time, you could flip any one of those. You could potentially have a different asset at a different position that could help you on a more weekly basis than a third quarterback doing this on your bench. So I think the third quarterback is a little bit overrated in Superflex. People are like, yeah, what about buys? What about injuries? If I have to overpay in that scenario, I'll deal with that later. But yeah, for the most part, I don't want to leave myself handcuffed potentially somewhere else if I'm, stashing a third QB that's a weekly start.
Gotcha.
So that being said, in the S tier, Jake, how many names do you have?
In the S tier, I have 3 names.
And they are?
And they are Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts.
Okay. Before I give my specific names, the way that I did another note to the way that I did mine, don't pay attention so much to the order of the names inside the tier. To me, that's splitting hairs. It's really just about the tier divisions that matter to me so much. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, 101, 102, Superflex startup. You want to take one or the other. By all means, take whatever personal preference you want. I would take Josh Allen, but that's just me. So S tier, I have 4 names. I also have Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts. They are the elite upside players. But I added a 4th name in Jaden Daniels because, and this breaks one of my rules, but I guess there's an exception to every rule. I'm generally, I like to see it again kind of person.
Mm-hmm.
But given the supporting cast he had, because they don't have the best pass catchers in the world. Terry McLaurin's a good wide receiver, but outside of that, they didn't really have a whole lot in the wide receiver room. Zach Ertz definitely past his prime. I think he played extremely well. Through the first 2 weeks, 2 weeks it was, by the way, Jake. 2 weeks, he didn't throw a touchdown pass, and he still averaged 21 points per game. I don't know that there are many quarterbacks in the NFL that could go 2 weeks without throwing a touchdown pass and still average 20 fantasy points per game over that stretch. So to me, that screams elite upside, and that is absolutely somebody I'm willing to take the chance on and put them in my S tier. Now, there's obviously all kinds of alarms with that. There's second-year sophomore regression. Look at C.J. Stroud. There is injury. Jaden Daniels, is a very small guy, but upside's there. Elite ceiling.
Gotcha. And I did have Jaden Daniels in my S tier, but I did take him out because I want to see consistency. And to me, that's how you get into the S tier, is you are consistently the best. So if he does this again next year, by all means, he's going to be in the S tier, and it's going to be unquestionable. And so, I mean, as an LSU fan, I love to see it, but
I have absolutely no qualms with that argument. Generally, I couldn't agree more. Like I said, I think this one guy might just be the exception to that rule for me.
yeah, that is really fair.
Moving on to the A tier, and I felt like for me it was a cop-out until I text you, and then I didn't feel as bad. I have 12 names in the A tier, which, again, goes back to the point where we agreed that, Dynasty is in a great spot as far as quarterback is concerned. So I had 12 names. How many names did you have?
I have 11 in my A tier, and I mean, this might be a little biased because I do have some guys in the B tier that, people will argue with me every day of the week, but I just personally, preference of mine, don't think these guys are going to max out. And that's like, I think their best days are behind them. And that's why I don't have them in the A tier anymore.
Okay. So since we have such big tiers, let's do like 4 names at a time. Who are your first 4 names?
First 4, Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert.
Okay, I have all of those names in my A tier as well. I have them in a bit of a different order, but again, back to my point, I'm not here to split hairs about, what order they're in. I actually have Joe Burrow at number 5, so same spot as you. Who else did you say?
Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes, I have him at the very bottom of my A tier.
Fair enough. And then Justin Herbert.
And then Justin Herbert, I have him at QB9. So
close enough.
Yeah. So my first 4, Joe Burrow, I have Caleb Williams, and then I have Kyler Murray and Drake May. I was gonna put Caleb lower. Until I looked at his rushing numbers.
Man, we do not see eye to eye right now.
I feel like what we saw last year was Caleb's floor as QB 15. I'm pulling that off the top of my head. Let me look that up right now.
Yeah, Caleb averages what, like 30 yards a game?
16. So 81 carries in 17 games. So we're talking about almost 5 carries a game, which for a quarterback is pretty good. And then, about 30 yards a game, 29 yards a game. So he's getting you almost an extra 3 points per game on the ground. Now, mind you, a guy who ran 81 times, he didn't rush for a single touchdown. So I feel like that's kind of interesting. Also, as I called, about 9 months ago, that the first half of his season was going to be total crap because the offensive coordinator there, Shane Waldron, is a terrible offensive coordinator. And that is exactly what happened. They were not good. Yeah. But I feel like what we saw here was the absolute floor for Caleb Williams. I'm going to see a lot of improvement from Caleb. And like I said, if I consistently see 80 carries a season, maybe even, 100 carries a season, we're talking, potentially like game, dynasty changing rushing upside, which is not something that I had on the books for Caleb. So just something to keep an eye on. Again, definitely wouldn't, complain if you had him lower. Not something that I'm willing to split hairs about.
Oh, well, spoiler alert. I don't even have him in the A tier. I don't even have him in the B tier.
That's interesting. Let's talk about it then. How come?
I don't think Caleb Williams is the elite guy everybody thinks he is. I love seeing the rushing upside. I think his arm is amazing, yes. But he got put in such a great position to succeed. And he put up good quarterback 2 numbers. But we were expecting eliteness. We were expecting top 10 quarterback play, and that's what he was supposed to be. And we are not getting that, and I want to see it. Like, I want to see it, and that's why he's in the C tier. I need to see him be consistent, because if you look, he had 7 fantasy points, 17, 11, 23, 28, 9, 9, 6, 16, 26, 26, 14, 9, 22, 6. Like, I don't want him to be my quarterback 2 because he's boom or bust. He's Derek Carr at this point. And so I want to see consistency. And yes, with Ben Johnson coming in, I love it. I think he can be there. And yes, next year, he can definitely be my A tier. But right now, I'm scared if I have Caleb Williams starting as my quarterback 2. And so to me, that puts you in C tier.
Yeah, I think we just don't see eye to eye here. Looking at the real life play, he surprisingly took very good care of the football. He did take a lot of sacks, but this is a guy who was anticipated to throw a lot of interceptions. And my counterpoint to your point is the weapons were there for sure. DJ Moore. Rome Odunze is also a rookie, so I'm not really going to say that, he was elite. But Keenan Allen's a nice little veteran to have. But again, I got to circle back to just the absolute incompetency of the Chicago Bears coaching staff, whether it was Shane Waldron as the offensive coordinator or the absolute blunder that was the end of the Detroit Lions game on Thanksgiving. I don't necessarily think Caleb Williams was in all around a good spot. I think coaching matters so much when it comes to rookie quarterbacks. And for what it's worth, I made my rankings on the 4th of January, so I didn't even have Ben Johnson going to the Bears at this time. But truthfully, I thought Ben Johnson was going to go to the Jags. But that's a different conversation to have. So, yeah, I have him in my A tier. The potential is there. The name is there, right? He has job security, which is one of the biggest things in Dynasty. He's not going anywhere for at least the next couple years. So he checks a lot of boxes. There's upside, job security, better coaching. He's got the number 1 wide receiver already. It's just a matter of, can he put it all together, to your point. So that's why I have him in the A tier. Probably too high, but.
Man, I get what you're saying. He took care of the ball, but like the sacks he took was incredibly insane. 12 games this year, he took 3 or more sacks, and just like I just can't get behind it. And this is, like I said, personal preference. This is me. I hope Ben Johnson can help him. I need to watch and see if Caleb Williams actually can take snaps under center, because I think he can run that offense well, just like Jared Goff did. If that's what he's bringing in, that's what he wants to do, I think he can. But I have to see it.
So my counter question to you is, one, I would say a lot more of those sacks were on him than they were his offensive line, but his offensive line didn't help. Why is that affecting your fantasy output of him?
Because there's going to be fumbles, there's going to be inconsistency. Like, if he can't fix his processing speed, if he can't fix him, and I say this as a Broncos fan, which is going to really bite me in the ass here, but Sean Payton said a lot of sacks are on the quarterback. And it just goes to show that Denver was top 3 sack leader last year with Russell Wilson. And then they were top 3 least sack team this year with Bo Nix. It is mostly on the quarterback. And
sacks are a quarterback stat. I would agree with that.
Yes. And so I just want to see him get rid of the ball. I want to see him go through his progressions and not leave the pocket. He's playing hero ball. He doesn't need to play hero ball to be efficient. And his best times were when he was just getting to his first or second read and or running. And so if he can do that, he's going to leap up. But until he does that and proves it to me that he can do it, he's in my C tier.
I respect your logic. It makes a lot of sense, because I think based on expectation, he does have a lot to prove. As far as like the fantasy community, to your point, a lot of people were expecting him to come in and be like a top 10 quarterback right away. But yeah, I respect your thoughts about Caleb Williams. We just obviously disagree, which is fine. But I am curious because when we talked yesterday, we had 2 different names in the A tier, and now we have 3. So interesting. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
So you read off the first 4. Just go ahead and read off the next 7.
Next 7, I got Kyler Murray, Brock Purdy, Baker Mayfield, Trevor Lawrence, Bo Nix, Tua Tagovailoa, and Drake May.
Okay, I also don't have Trevor or Tua in there.
Okay. So you
Trevor,
have...
for me, Tua just doesn't have any rushing upside at all. He's obviously a statue in the pocket.
So you have him in the B tier, I take it?
Yeah. Whereas most other guys ahead of him do at least have some sort of running upside. So that's where that comes from. I think Tua is a fine NFL quarterback, but for fantasy purposes, he doesn't bring a lot to the table himself. So that's why I have him in the B tier.
I got you. And Tua did miss 6 games.
There's also the injury concern, but
yeah, and I totally get on board. But when he is playing, he is pretty much what you want. He got hurt in the Buffalo game, week 2, so I kind of want to nix that score. But he had 18.6, 14, 17, 8, 23, 28, 25, 23, 3, and 12. And so, and that's without, he had a bad year, statistically.
I don't think he had a bad year.
Well, he did, but,
Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle had bad years.
Yeah. And so, to me, it's all there. I think they're going to upgrade the line a little more, and they'll be back. And if Tyreek Hill does get traded, 1, Waddle to the moon. And 2, I think Tua will be more comfortable. I just think Mike McDaniels, right? That is his name, right? I'm not losing that one.
Yes, Mike McDaniels.
Too many Mikes in this league. But I think McDaniels hindered him. Didn't want him to get injured again. And so he was a bunch of dump offs, bunch of just screen passes. And I think this year he's going to learn from that and see what he did wrong. And I think a big year is coming for Tua.
So my counterpoint to that is, and this is what rushing upside can do for you in fantasy football. 2 years ago, when Tyreek Hill was balling out, Devon Achane was balling out, Raheem Mostert balled out, Tua had his best year where he led the league in passing yards in 2023, if I'm not mistaken, and he still only finished as QB9. So that tells me, his absolute ceiling, leading the league in passing, you can't get any higher than number 1 overall, and he still only finished as QB9. He just doesn't provide enough upside for me, whereas the other guys ahead of him do. I think, so the most rushing yards he's ever had, he hasn't rushed for a touchdown in 3 years.
Well, it doesn't really need to when he's passing the ball throwing touchdown passes. And, they like to run it in the red zone.
So there's just not a ton of – he just doesn't have similar upside. 2 is somebody I'm okay with. If he's my quarterback 2, if he's my quarterback 1, I'm definitely looking to upgrade the room. I need somebody with more upside in the room.
I can get behind that. And like I said, he is at the bottom of my A tier. If he has another year like this, gets hurt or something, he's dropping down. But when he's healthy and plays, you put him in there, and he's just a plug. He's there, and you're happy with it.
So you would feel better about him if Tyreek Hill got traded?
Not necessarily better, but we just saw what they could do without Tyreek Hill. So I don't think it's going to hinder him at all, like people think.
I think it would at least have some effect. Defenses, granted, Tyreek Hill didn't have a good year, but just the fact that he's out there changes the way that defenses line up against the Dolphins.
And fair enough. And so we'll have to see. But, if you look at him, he only had 4 games. Granted, he missed 6. But where he got sacked 3 or more times.
Yeah,
And
Tua
so,
is pretty good at getting the ball out.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I said is I think McDaniels hindered him. So I think they beef up the offensive line. He has more time, and we get to see a better Tua.
It's also fairly interception prone, but to me that doesn't change any fantasy relevance because in standard scoring leagues, interceptions are -1 point. So whoop-de-doo.
When you say interception prone, what do you mean?
In the last 28 games, he's thrown 21 interceptions.
He threw 7 this year, though.
But he only played 10 and a half games.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the Buffalo game, he threw 3 interceptions. The Houston game, 3 interceptions. Outside of that, he threw 1 interception against LA. He was clean outside of that.
Yeah, and I think Tua had a pretty good year, but if you go back to the year before that, 14 interceptions in 17 games, and they were all fairly spread out.
I mean,
if we're doing a real-life analysis, I'm just saying Tua has a tendency to be a little careless with the football at times.
Yeah, but I mean, the more you mature, the more you get better. And I mean, this year it showed that he is getting better with taking care of the football. And or maybe he's just getting the ball out quickly and no chance to throw an interception.
Could be. But again, like I said, interceptions to me don't have any bearing on fantasy relevance because they're underscored. That's why in my leagues I make them -2. I feel like it at least makes you think twice about drafting guys who are just relentlessly turning the football over. Jameis Winston.
Right. Poor guy. God, if he could just learn not to turn the ball over.
And then the other different one that you have that I don't, Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is an interesting one because I like Trevor Lawrence. I do think he's a little overhated. But if he's my quarterback 1, I'm in trouble. It's kind of the same thing with Tua. I'm definitely in trouble. Do I think that he's going to bounce back and have a good year? Probably. I think I like the Liam Cohen hiring for Trevor Lawrence in the offense. Yeah.
God, man.
That was cringeworthy for sure.
Oh, dude, I legit cringed when I had no idea what that video was. Just seeing people blast him and hearing that, I legit cringed. Like my face just scrunched up, and I was just like, "How is this guy getting a head coaching job?" But I mean, good for him, and that's why I love Trevor Lawrence as a buy low right now.
Oh yeah, to me, I still feel like he is a little overhated, despite the fact that I have him in my B tier. Again, I think he's a solid QB2. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I know he's flirted with QB1 finishes. We talked about it yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
A large part of that is because quarterbacks have missed time over the last couple of years. Quarterbacks with more upside, whereas he has stayed healthy up until this year, of course. But
you don't think with Christian Kirk got hurt, but Brian Thomas Jr. making his appearance and doing great, and then having ETN back and a healthy Melvin Ingram with a Brenton Strange, you don't think that offense can perform?
You said Melvin Ingram.
I did say it, and I meant Evan Ingram, but it's fine.
So Evan Ingram may not be a Jacksonville Jaguar. I think that team's going to look to rebuild, and he saves $20 million against the cap if he's cut.
And he might not be on the team, but I love what I saw out of Brenton Strange. So
yeah, Brenton Strange, second-round pick from Penn State last year. I think there's a promising path for him to get some touches, but at the end of the day, and the offense could change this, right? The offensive mindset with Liam Cohen could change this, but they are very cautious about throwing the football in the red zone. I don't know if you've watched a lot of Jacksonville's games. They really don't throw the ball in the red zone a whole lot. And it limits Trevor Lawrence's passing touchdown ceiling. Now, he's an athletic dude. He can run. He was obviously hurt this year, but he still had 3 rushing touchdowns, 4 the year before that, 5 the year before that. That's a skill that I think him and Justin Herbert, their teams don't utilize enough. I think they're both sneaky athletic quarterbacks. But it's just one of those things where I asked myself, my A tier standard was I'm okay with these guys being my QB1. If Trevor Lawrence is my QB1, am I okay with that? The answer is no.
Okay.
To round out my A tier, so to recap, I had Burrow, Williams, Kyler, and Drake May.
Mm-hmm.
Justin Herbert, Brock Purdy, Jordan Love, Bo Nix, Baker, CJ, Goff, and Mahomes. So I didn't hear you say Goff, Stroud, or Love. So I think those are the three different names, yeah?
Yep, those are the three different names.
Stroud's at the bottom of my A tier. I have him at 14. Again, you can split hairs. It's only been 2 seasons. The Texans did just fire their offensive coordinator, so maybe there will be a change there.
Yeah,
Also didn't have Nico Collins, didn't have Stephon Diggs, didn't have Tank Dell for large portions of the season. So, take that for what it's worth. But I'm not ready to give up on Stroud per se, but at the same time, I think he doesn't have that elite rushing upside. We need to see what kind of offense is going to be installed in Houston. There's some questions there now after that sophomore season.
Yeah, and all I'm saying is he not once did he ever put up just like the quarterback one numbers you want, like the 25 plus game. He had a 23-point game against Jacksonville. Outside of that,
I think everybody had a 23-point game against Jacksonville.
Let's say I can go out there and put up a 23-point game against Jacksonville. Just kidding.
I'm willing to give him a pass because, like I said, Diggs got hurt early. Dell got hurt like halfway through the season. Collins missed a huge chunk of the season. He was never really throwing to his guys all at the same time.
I get it,
and he's young.
I agree.
And there's job security. He's locked in. They're not going to draft another quarterback. So
yeah, for me, that would be a guy I'd want in my B tier because to me, I want to see it again. Like he put up a great rookie season. Sophomore slump happened. He put up some very subpar games.
Some very mediocre performances. I could see why you would have that in your B tier. Like I said, young, secure. He does check some boxes. He's not a great runner, but he is a great
when half of
thrower.
your games are under 10 fantasy points or under 13 fantasy points, you're scared. That's not a guy that I would consider like plug and play.
My big thing for having him here is I am giving him a massive pass for literally not having anybody to throw the football to at times.
Fair enough, but I'm still kind of shocked that with the no rushing upside that you kept him there.
Yeah, that's why he's toward the bottom for me. I think QB 11. His QB 11 rookie season. I think that's fairly close to his ceiling. I think he has the same kind of ceiling as Tua, but he's younger than Tua. He doesn't have injury concerns like Tua. Just checks that extra box for me, and that's the difference between him and Tua, really.
Oh yeah, we'll figure it out.
And then I have Mahomes at the bottom because I think for fantasy purposes he is grossly overrated, and that's me sending a message to the rest of the Dynasty community who has him as like a top 3 option. It's like go prove to me that he's a top 3 option. Point out something from the last 2 years that says Mahomes is a top 3 option.
I think he's a top 10 personally.
Yeah, and again, I'm not going to split hairs in the A tier. Like I said, that's just purely me sending a message, putting him down there.
Didn't he finish? He finished top 10, didn't he?
He finished QB 12, I think.
Oh, okay. I mean, quarterback 1 finish.
Yeah, but there's a lot of quarterback 1 finishes from the last 2 years that you don't have higher than Mahomes.
But Mahomes has consistently done it, though.
So have these other players. You know exactly who I'm talking about.
I know who, and we're going to get into that right now.
Oh, my bad.
So my B tier, I have Jordan Love, Jordan Goff, Dak Prescott, Michael Penix, and CJ Stroud, and Geno Smith.
Geno, interesting.
Interesting how?
I like Geno's performance. I think Geno performs well. I just think it's interesting you have a going on 33-year-old quarterback in your top 24.
I mean, who else do they got?
Oh, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying I thought that was an interesting.
I think he is the Seattle Seahawks quarterback for the next 3 years, which is kind of all I care about.
I think that statement is interesting because he is going into the final year of his deal. So if he signs an extension this offseason, I think I'll be a little bit more on board with you.
Fair enough. Good point. Solid point. But who do you got?
So my C tier is, or this is B tier, excuse me. Anthony Richardson, Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa, and Dak Prescott. I think Dak's probably one of the most overhated quarterbacks in fantasy. I think he's a buy for me because when he's out there, he performs really well.
Mm-hmm.
They've kind of centered their offense around him the last few years, and unless they draft an Ashton Genty type or multiple running backs from this draft class, they're once again not going to run the football very well. It's going to be the Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb show. Jake Ferguson will get some of his too. But yeah, I think Dak is overhated from a fantasy perspective. I think he provides good fantasy numbers for you. And somebody that, like, if he's my QB2, I'm okay with that. And if he's my QB3, I'm hooping.
Okay. I can get on board with that.
So let's address the elephant in the room. Jared Goff in the C tier.
Oh, man, I hate Jared Goff for the next coming years. Like I said,
12 months ago, you were on the Jared Goff train. So go ahead. What's changed?
12 months ago I was?
Oh, dude, you were all over Jared Goff this time last year.
I feel like that was like 2 years ago. And I was right 2 years ago. But, yeah, no, I sold all my Jared Goff shares this last year.
Might have been 2 years ago.
I have zero problems with Jared Goff. I have a problem with Ben Johnson leaving. I have a problem with if he doesn't have one of the top 3 best offensive lines in football, and if he gets pressured, he throws interceptions. And I think he peaked this year. I think it's not going to get any better. I think it's only going to go downhill. And to me, that's kind of what scares me. And so if you look at his game log history, if I can bring it up here. Yeah. He went 6, 7, both with Ben Johnson, 10, and then not great, but still had good offensive coordinators and great scheme. I don't know what scheme they're going to bring here. Scares me, and I think his best is no more. I think he is a great sell high right now, and to me, that's just me. That's my opinions. That's how I feel. I was right 3 years ago when I said he was a good quarterback and you needed him, and I feel like we've seen the best of him.
So I can get on board with being worried about the offensive staff that's there. I can agree with that because not only is Ben Johnson gone, I think like the offensive line coach is gone, the quarterbacks coaches, they've got like 9 guys from their offensive staff gone. So it may not just be like Ben Johnson handing his system off. It may be like an entirely new thing. But a couple of key counterpoints. You said, if he doesn't have a top 3 offensive line, well, he does. If he doesn't have a lot of weapons, well, he may have the best weapons in football.
Mm-hmm.
And you said he can't throw under pressure. Jared Goff this year under pressure, 72.4% completion, second in the NFL behind Tua Tagovailoa. So the numbers disagree with you. And the reality is the situation you said, if he doesn't have this, if he doesn't have that, he has all of those things. So yes, do I think that he regresses from QB6? Sure. That's why I have him at QB 15 on my list in the A tier. And again, he's not a runner, doesn't have that running upside.
Mm-hmm.
But job security, he's locked in as their starting quarterback. He's not going anywhere. Has all the weapons. I mean, he has Amon-Ra, he has Laporta, he has Williams, he has Gibbs, he has Monty. Got an embarrassment of riches. Got a great offensive line. Yeah, I mean that all the boxes are checked. It's really just a matter of what offensive scheme is coming in here for me. And this is a guy who the last 3 years, QB 10, QB 7, QB 6, the fantasy numbers are going to be there. He's pretty much going to be a low end QB 1 year in and year out.
I don't think he finishes as a QB1 this year.
We'll revisit this in August.
Okay.
But I won't jersey bet now, but I'll throw it out there in August.
Okay. Fair enough. But anything else from the C tier that you see as a question mark?
Jordan Love's an interesting one to me. I know you hate Jordan Love in real life. Go ahead. Why you hate him in fantasy? Well, not hate, but why do you dislike him compared to the market?
Just because I think he hasn't done enough. He had the one good year. Like I said, the one good year, he got paid for it. Congratulations. And then this year he came back and he had CJ Stroud numbers. He had a few good games, but I mean, he doesn't blow me away with anything. And he has 0 rushing upside, which is really funny because people said that that's one thing he should have.
Because he does. Keep in mind, 2 years ago when he was healthy, 50 carries for 250 yards and 4 touchdowns. It's there.
Well, yeah, this year he had, 8, 9, 10, 19 carries.
25 for 83 and 1, but he did also hurt his leg in week 1.
Fair enough. 9, 10.
I think a healthy Jordan Love is very athletic. I think he's got a great arm. I think he's got a little bit of Brett Favre in him. I think we can agree on that. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say Tua's careless with the football and not say Jordan Love isn't. 22 interceptions in 32 career starts. So not terrible, but, not great either. Just
I mean, he cleaned it up at the end of the year. I will give him that. He cleaned it up, put up some decent quarterback 2 numbers, but he didn't blow you away with anything. He isn't that quarterback 1 that everybody makes him out to be.
I would be okay. Again, I asked myself, would I be okay with him being my QB1? I said yes, but I'd have to have somebody else in the A tier, at least.
Oof. Which is why he's not in my A tier, which is why he's in the B tier.
They've got, again, this is a big part. He's got job security, right? He's got a massive contract. He's not going anywhere. He's tied to a very, very smart offensive-minded head coach. I think the Packers' weapons are a little overrated by the community. I think they're solid weapons. I don't think that there's anybody that really jumps off the page to me there. So he's at least got a decent core of weapons, but I think there's room for improvement there in Green Bay.
Fair enough.
A lot of people like Romeo Doubs, and I have never been on the Romeo Doubs train.
I think Romeo Doubs is a solid wide receiver too.
I think he's probably a better wide receiver 3.
I don't know. If he was on Denver, I would be ecstatic.
Well, that's because Denver has a bunch of wide receiver 4s and Courtland Sutton.
Big facts.
Which is why Bo Nix is very high, because doing a lot with a little, get you somewhere.
No run game, no nothing.
So who's your last tier?
My last tier, and like I said, these are guys I want to see things from that have potential, and if they do it this next year, they definitely jump out of this tier. I have J.J. McCarthy, who didn't get to play this year, but we all saw what Sam Darnold did. And I think J.J. McCarthy can do everything Sam Darnold did, if not better. Caleb Williams.
The first positive thing you've said about J.J. McCarthy.
We're not going to talk about it. But
JJ
Caleb, and we talked about Caleb. I just want to see. I need to see the improvement. I need to see the no sacks taken, the no playing hero ball. But
Completely understandable.
and then Bryce Young. Look, ladies and gentlemen, this guy to me is a huge, and I think everybody is on this boat right now of he is a great buy low, which is meaning he's going to get hard to buy. We saw the confidence when he came back. I don't know if you watched any of the Panthers games. He started understanding, I think, the speed of the game, and I thought it started clicking. I think he got to watch Andy Dalton and what he did live, and he's like, oh, I can do those things. And then he went out there and did it and built on it. And he has a 34-year-old receiver as his best wide receiver threat.
Adam Thielen's still kind of nice, though.
Dude, he straight up cooking it for 34, dude.
So I was making some faces after you said Bryce Young, not because of the Bryce Young thing. He's in my C tier too, and I completely agree with what you just said. I actually got to watch him play against the Eagles, where if Xavier Legette, makes a catch, now the Eagles are having to drive with a minute down the field. But
they're going to score because that defense was terrible.
But I was making a face because I said Anthony Richardson in my B tier. I think that's the name we have different. You have Geno Smith and I have Anthony Richardson. You don't have Richardson in your top 24, do you?
I do.
Where do you have him?
I have him at 24. He's my last name on the C.
Oh, okay. I thought you said and Bryce Young, so I thought you were done.
Oh, no. So I said, and Bryce Young, yeah, I did prolong that but I don't want to talk about Anthony Richardson because I've said everything I need to say about that motherfucker. Learn to throw the fucking ball. Learn to throw it accurate.
The upside is the only reason that he's in my top 24.
And or stay healthy and run the ball. Give me something. Don't be inaccurate, tap your helmet, and not fucking run.
Tap your helmet. Check out. I'm out of breath.
Bro,
God damn.
I legit never wanted to see Anthony Richardson ever again when he did that. Like, I lost all faith in him being a quality NFL quarterback.
So who is the name that we have different?
Do you have Darnold?
I know who it is. Duh. I'm an idiot. So my C tier, I have Michael Penix, J.J. McCarthy, Bryce Young, and Sam Darnold.
Yeah, you have Darnold, and I have Geno
Smith. Those are the differences. So Geno Smith, for what it's worth, probably would have been in my C tier, but because we stopped at 24, it was basically like, who would I rather have straight up right now?
Oh, yeah.
I know that there's a lot of assumption that, like, Sam Darnold's going to take a hit because of the situation that he's going to go to isn't as good as Minnesota. And I think that everybody and their mom can agree with that. But who's to say that Sam Darnold didn't actually learn something under Kevin O'Connell? Who's to say that maybe he doesn't maybe he goes to New Orleans? They're going to get Kellen Moore as their coach, Chris Olave.
Derek Carr's staying in New Orleans. I promise you that.
Well, I think that happens too. But what if? They're a quarterback needy team.
It'd be a wild time. I would love to see what happens.
What if he goes to the Giants where he has Malik Neighbors as his number one?
Well, I'm buying all the Malik shares because he's got nobody else to throw to.
Sam Darnold could at least put up like respectable numbers there if he learned something in Minnesota. So 27-year-old former first-round pick, coming off a career year, going into free agency. There is also the ever slight chance that he goes back to Minnesota. I don't believe that he does. I don't think really anybody does, but we've seen a lot crazier things happen.
He could go to the Raiders.
He could go to the Raiders.
And we see
I think Cam Ward, my hot take is, and we'll get into this, I'll save it. So Michael Penix, J.J. McCarthy, Bryce Young. I just need to see Bryce Young to continue to build off of what Dave Canales has made for him. Maybe they need to go get another weapon so he can take the next step. Michael Penix looked great in his 3 starts, 3 interceptions in his first 3 starts. Nonetheless, he made some really good plays over the middle of the field. Very good for both Drake London and Kyle Pitts. And then J.J. McCarthy, I was high on him from the start. I just want to see him play some games. Watching what Sam Darnold did, knowing that J.J. McCarthy is a better athlete with a better arm, is very, uplifting for me as a J.J. McCarthy truther.
Mm-hmm. And the thing you kind of love about Penix is it was improved over, like, the 3 games he improved every time.
Yes.
And so that's what you like to see.
He's
And
also got a plethora of weapons at his disposal.
so much. And so he's going to get time this offseason with the ones. He didn't get that. Kirk Cousins got all of them. It's going to be very interesting to see. I have Kyle Pitts shares that I just can't unload. So we're going to go into another year of the pits of hell, and we're going to call it a day.
So what I was about to say, the rookie QBs, my hot take prediction is the Raiders trade up to number 1 overall and draft Cam Ward.
That is a hot take.
There's been a lot of movement in the sports books. There has also been a statement made by the president of football operations in Tennessee's, for the Tennessee Titans, that they want to draft a generational player. And I can think of only one name that defines that, and that's Abdul Carter. Now, I think, they're going to dangle that number 1 pick out there, and some absolutely desperate quarterback needy team is going to trade, more than they probably should for that first overall pick. And I think it's the Raiders.
Dude, hear me out, though. Max Crosby and Carter on the same defensive line.
Weren't Raiders fans saying that about Tyree Wilson?
I don't know what they were saying about Tyree Wilson. That man should have never been drafted, but whatever. I don't
know what they were saying. I'm just being facetious.
I'm just saying I would much rather them take Cam Ward. So please take Cam Ward over Carter.
But yeah, so that's, again, there's been a lot of movements in sports books too. I think 2 weeks ago, Cam Ward was minus 125 to be the first overall pick. I checked this morning. He's plus 100, and right behind him is Abdul Carter. So I think if the Titans get an offer they can't refuse, I think they trade out of number 1. But I think that they go ahead and draft Abdul Carter at number 1 overall too. I don't think that they take a quarterback, at least not that early.
That would be a hot take. I don't mind that.
Any rookie quarterbacks you've got your eye on, Jake? I know there's one that you have really liked. It's gained some steam probably the last month or so.
Oh, yeah, but I think we should save that for our quarterback analysis.
Okay. It's a good deal.
Tease it for the next one.
Yeah. Any closing remarks before we sign out here?
No, it's good to get back in the workshop. Been extremely busy, you and I. So it's nice to put out something for the people.
Oh, yeah. And as always, go Birds. Super Bowl next week. Can't wait.
Let's go. Fly, Eagles, fly, baby. That's the only time you're going to hear me say that shit.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of BSing Sports, where we do a little BS and we talk a whole lot of sports. Have a good day.